Warning, I'm giving you one last chance to turn back, because once we start, there's no going back. The images you'll see, they can't be unseen. They'll burrow into your mind, making you question not just why you clicked on this video, but the very nature of humanity itself. Today, I'm diving into one of the darkest, most bone-chilling stories I've come across in my research. This is the story of two friends, Brandon and Max, who ventured too deep into the shadows of the internet, the dark web, and found themselves trapped in a nightmarish reality. Brandon and Max were typical college students, both studying in Seattle. Like many thrill-seekers, they were fascinated by the unknown and had a dark curiosity about the forbidden corners of the internet. They had heard whispers about something called a red room, a place where unimaginable horrors happen, all live-streamed for anyone willing to pay. For those who don't know, red rooms are supposedly virtual spaces on the dark web where real acts of torture and violence are broadcasted in real time. Whether they're real or not is debated, but for Brandon and Max, their experience would make them believers. One quiet evening in November, Brandon suggested they try accessing the dark web just to see if they could find a red room. Max, though hesitant, eventually agreed, saying it would be an experience they'd never forget. They set up in Max's dorm room, with dim lights casting eerie shadows on the walls, adding to the unnerving vibe of their little adventure. They managed to get onto the dark web, but as they expected, access to the red room wasn't free. They needed cryptocurrency. Brandon, desperate to see it, made a rash decision and drained his bank account to buy a small amount of Bitcoin. They used it to enter a site that claimed to be a red room, titled The Final Show. As they clicked enter, a message appeared. "Welcome to the final show. Are you ready?" Brandon and Max, both intrigued and nervous, clicked yes. Suddenly, a chat box appeared, inviting them to make requests for a live video feed. At this point, Max was growing increasingly uneasy and suggested they leave. But Brandon, captivated by the dark thrill, convinced him to stay a little longer. The screen flickered and a grainy video appeared. In the center of a dimly lit, crimson-painted room, a young woman was seated with her head down. Two figures, masked and faceless, walked into the frame. What happened next was beyond anything they'd imagined. The chat erupted with horrifying requests. People were typing out commands, each more brutal than the last, demanding the masked figures torture the girl in front of them. Brandon, in disbelief, watched as one comment after another fueled the violence unfolding on screen. Someone even asked to see the girl's hands broken, piece by piece. The two figures on the screen obliged without hesitation, responding to the darkest whims of the viewers. Max couldn't take it anymore. He begged Brandon to shut it down. The horror of what they were watching finally set in, and they both realized they had wandered far beyond what they could handle. In a panic, Brandon tried to close the screen, but nothing happened. He clicked frantically, but it was as if the website had taken control of their computer. The video feed suddenly froze, and a new message appeared on the screen. It read, "We know who you are." Brandon and Max stared at each other, horrified. The message continued, "You thought you could come here and leave? You're part of this now." As if things couldn't get worse, their laptop camera light flickered on, indicating they were being watched. Both friends covered the camera, their hearts racing, realizing they were no longer anonymous spectators. In a frenzy, Brandon finally shut the laptop down, and they sat there, breathing heavily in silence. The nightmares began soon after. Brandon started getting emails from anonymous addresses, each one containing screenshots from the red room they'd entered. Disturbingly, some even included photos of him and Max taken through his laptop's camera, at angles they hadn't noticed during their viewing. Max began receiving messages as well, only these were worse. He would wake up to find his phone lit up with unknown calls and cryptic texts saying, "You can't escape the final show." The worst came when he found a note on his dorm room door that simply read, "We're watching." After weeks of living in paranoia, they both dropped out of college and moved back home, trying to escape the nightmare they had unleashed. To this day, neither of them goes online without extreme caution, fearing they'll somehow be dragged back to that horrifying place they once dared to visit. Now, I can't say if this story is true or not, but it's enough to make anyone think twice about venturing into the dark web. It's a world where curiosity can open doors to places you may never come back from. So if you want to keep the fun rolling and uncover more mysteries, like why socks disappear in the laundry, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join me for our next escapade. Who knows? You might just find out the secret to life, or at least how to make the perfect grilled cheese.